Hey guys, this is Healthy Life Designing. I'm Darian. Today our guest is Mary Greenlee. She is also known as the author of the Life Facts book, as well as a virtual coach. She is joining us today to talk about her book that will equip you with all of life's things and includes everything from personal, medical, legal, and financial arrangements. It has everything you need in it and more, as well as some helpful hints along with it. So if you are looking to better organize your life and need more ways than one to get yourself there, then stick around because the wonderful Mary Greenlee is going to be joining me when we come back.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Hey guys, we are back. This is Healthy Life Designing. Mary Greenlee is joining us today. Thank you so much for being here, Mary.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. One of the things that really just got me so excited when we talked previously was you talking about having a 14th career. And that's kind of how I thought it'd be fun to start our conversation because you and I have a lot in common around that.
It's fun to get to know you.
So can you tell me how you got to your 14th career? Because obviously you've done a ton of different things. Can you just give us some of your history?
Well, I think my mom said I was sort of born as an organizer. And from the time I was little, and they called me Molly B because I buzzed around everywhere.
Oh, that's funny.
I have enjoyed doing that all my life. And when you buzz around places, people say, come join me. And so much of my life has been that way. It's not that I started out intentionally to do it, but I was sort of recruited along the way, whether it was professional or volunteer work that I did. So I started out as a kid and a student, and I've ended up as a knowledge broker. We can talk more about that later.
So you decided to, at one point, get with a group of women to start on this book. How did that start? Because you worked with over 40 different women on this book.
Well, and it wasn't just women.
Okay.
I never counted to see whether it was women or men. It was who had the ability to bring their knowledge to the planning table.
Okay.
So they were some professionals, female lawyers, male accountants, and all of that kind of thing. But I knew clearly from having my husband die and leave me with a law practice and other kinds of things that I needed all those people to be able to straighten things out and for me to go on about my life.
And you and your husband were married for how many years?
46 years. And he died in 6 days. And quite frankly, I left the legal and the business part of our relationship to David. That was a terrible mistake because I didn't know how to access things when all of a sudden he wasn't there to do it. And I was the owner of a legal practice. And so that all of those things rolled in for me in a way that they do for people in other ways, but For me, it was like a bean buried under a mountain of paperwork. So it was these people that we knew already who were friends in Rotary or whatever that my husband counted on, even though he was very independent and filed his own tax returns and all that kind of thing. He had it all in a purple folder in the lower left-hand drawer of his desk. I knew it was there, but when I got in there, it wasn't accessible, anything that I could really deal with. Much of it was in his head.
Well, and you had talked about how you guys kind of separated your chores within your household and your duties overall within a family.
Yes. Yes, I was the decorator and the gardener and all of the making of the household and setting up in the community I was in and the different volunteer work. It's a very traditional model, one that both of our parents had experienced and seemed good to me. And quite frankly, I didn't want to do that part of it. He
Right.
could pay the bills, do the tax returns, all those kinds of things.
So can you start us off with kind of leading us into this book?
Yes. When I was left under the mountain of paperwork, I wasn't shy about asking people to help me out. And I recently had a conversation with my accountant, and I said, Sam, were you ever sorry you said to me when you were going through the receiving line after the funeral, Mary, call me. I'll help you however I can. Because indeed, he was the one who has seen me through the fiscal part of things.
Mm.
But we had lots of friends, and I knew enough to know that there are all sorts of categories, everything from psychologists to personal bankers and everything, so that I had an understanding. And what I didn't know before, I found out pretty quickly as I was trying to walk through taking over the whole household. What was amazing is I also started feeling guilty that there are all sorts of things that David would not have known if I had died in 6 days, like who maintained the pond or the irrigation system or repaired the wallpaper or whatever, trimmed the trees. I became very aware that I had not prepared that information for him either.
Right.
So, as my very good friends who said, what can I do to help 6 of them, gathered around my kitchen table and said, okay, how are we going to figure out how you can stay in your house and survive? And that was the core, those group of women around that table. They had knowledge that other people didn't have. They understood other people that needed to be invited to the table from their own life experiences. What we ended up with was a core of people, professionals, and people who had been on the front line of something like this, who knew clearly what they were lacking. And together they put we called them the transition team,
Mm-hmm.
and they put together the contents of the Life Facts book. Now, I can tell you there were lots of things that didn't get included in the Life Facts book, like,
Okay.
so you've been filed, somebody filed divorce papers against you. What do you do in the first 2 weeks? Things like that. We ended up with concentrating on 4 primary areas: financial, legal, personal, and medical. Those things we figured everybody needed to have.
Right.
Then they also incorporated a final arrangement section that talks about end of life choices, because you never know when they're going to happen. So in 2 pages, 8.5 by 11, you can totally set your funeral and everything else that happens.
So could you kind of give us more of a specific detail of things that might stand out that have come up more frequently than others?
Yes. Let's just talk about, and I have a mini course in health info at your fingertips, because in the COVID thing that we're doing with right now, I think that is, people really want that. Let me show you a copy of the book. This is not the note. notebook, but here's the spiral book. And in that section, there are not only the medical things you would need, let's say like you need your health history, you need to have your supplements, you need to have the prescriptions that you're taking, you need a history of every surgery you've had, you need a place to record your blood type. All of those things, if there was an emergency that happened, your doctors, your healthcare providers would have immediate access to. Very important.
Yes. And you know what? You mentioning blood type, I have found that talking with my clients about health, that more times than not, most of my clients, they don't even know their blood type. And when they've tried to contact their doctor doesn't seem to know. And I always found that so silly. And so just having a book in your house with something just as simple as that can be a huge thing if somebody needs a blood transfusion.
Yes. Actually, what we recommend in my health info at your fingertips is a to-go bag. We talk about all the legal things like a DNR, medical power of attorney, a quality of life statement, and everything, so that you have that ready to go. Some people put it on the side of their refrigerator because EMS workers know to look there if they're going to have it. So any specific thing, allergies and things like that, would be recorded in that. We had that book, that bag ready when my husband was taken to the hospital, and I just grabbed it and took it with me. It's so easy to do. You can have one for every member of the family, and it gives that immediate information so that there's no great hunt for information. You've got it there. What I do is in my billfold, I have 2 8.5 by 11 papers that are done in a Word document. It has all of my surgical history. It has all of my allergy supplements and everything on one page. The other page has all of my physicians on it. I developed that before this book ever happened because I'm the one who had the medical history. My husband had never been in the hospital. He had no issues. And so he said to me, what would I do if something happened to you and you couldn't talk? What would I do? So all of those things were developed before the Life Facts book ever came into being. However, in the book, we have forms for people to fill out with the suggestion that they put it in something in their billfold. So easy to have it. I went to the emergency room not long ago, and I pulled out that sheet. I had to produce it 12 times. I wasn't feeling good. This was the essence of my medical history. And they kept saying, well, could I have this? I said, no, you've got to duplicate it and give it back to me because I know I'm going to need it again. Anyway, that's a practical thing. And if you have that for everybody, it's a no-brainer in an emergency room.
Oh my gosh. And it saves so much stress. And especially if you have a big family and you're all trying to take care of your mom or your dad and nobody's on the same page with communication. I mean, that's just a great tool.
And the first place that EMS workers look for is in your billfold, and you're likely to have that. And of course, you would have your medical information and everything. However, we have other forms that you can put all that on and put it in your to-go bag. So you've just got the whole piece all together.
Very good.
So we identify all of the components that people need to have in our course. And then we talk about how quality of life statements, lots of people don't think about that. But
you know what? And that's a great place right there that we're going to take a break, because we're going to leave the folks with a second to think about just that. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Amanda Wattenberg, Regional Director at Ohio Guidestone. Do you or does someone you know have a substance abuse disorder? Have you been thinking about getting help, but don't know where to start? It takes a lot of courage to ask for help, but it's the most important step you can take. If you think you know everything that's available in Fairfield County, think again. Like other chronic diseases, addiction can be managed successfully. Treatment enables people to counteract addiction's powerful, disruptive effects on the brain's behavior and regain control of their lives. Even if it takes multiple attempts, treatment does work and people do recover from addiction every day. So keep trying because your life matters. You matter, and we're here to help. Call 211 and ask for the treatment resources available right here in Fairfield County.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board. Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
We were retiring from Tucson, Arizona, and we made a retirement trip out around Ohio, having decided that's where we wanted to be. And we came across this town called Lancaster. And we fell in love with the downtown area, where the fountain is, and the memorials, and the flags, and all this stuff. And we looked around, and I said, there's our bank, right there.
There's something to be said about a community bank in your hometown.
Right. If you live in the community, you should do business in the community as much as possible. So it makes sense to bank with the community bank where you live.
Fairfield Federal is the bank to be at. If you live in this town, or any town actually, you want to bank at a local home bank. And the employees are happy here, they're conversant, customer service is through the roof. There's nothing more you could ask for.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome to the Green Machine. Like to be part of Green Machine, keep me busy, and it's also important that we do it together as a group, and we plow and plant, and we have lots of produce. We have tomatoes like one here, and gourds, cucumbers, squash, crawberries, beets, microgreens. We also have flower arrangement, and we also sell bags, those tote bags out of animal food bags, and we sell them out in the market, farmers market.
It's a special place that keeps people healthy by eating a couple fruits and vegetables. I always show people, first time they pick raspberries and green beans, I show them how to do it like if they do it wrong. Picking raspberries and green beans is simple, it's easy for me. We're entering some things in the field like pumpkins, the gourds were growing, and everyone likes them. Tasty.
Hey guys, we're back. This is Healthy Life Designing. We have been talking to the wonderful Mary Greenlee, and we left off talking about the quality of life. Can you hit on that just for a second?
Sure. Quality of life statement is something that you decide when you would want extra mechanical devices to keep you alive, any kind of excessive kind of treatment. You get to do some of those things on legal documents. A DNR, do not resuscitate, would be one of those. That's a legal document. The quality of life statement isn't a legal document, but you'd like to have it implemented and honored. And how do you do that? You have an advocate. You might call them a power of attorney. You also just might call them a very good friend who is able to act on your behalf. You don't have to be dying to do this. You are incapacitated, or you simply don't have the wherewithal to get things done in a hospital, for instance.
Right.
These are for personal information, legal information, and financial information. They can be called trustees. They can be called guardians. They can be called conservators. They can even be called funeral facilitators. But the important thing, and our group of 40 pros put together the qualities that you really should consider when you are selecting somebody. May I go for those?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, they have to be 18 years or older. Second, they have to be available and knowledgeable. Guess who has to be knowledgeable? You have to give that to them, or they have to understand what their responsibilities are. They have to be ethical, resilient, and reputable. Big qualities. They have to be able to understand your directives and willing to act on your behalf. They have to be accepting of responsibility. We've laid out some very important things. They have to be willing, capable, and assertive in carrying out your wishes.
It's pretty important.
Yes.
Yes.
So in some cases, there are legal things that need to be filled out and honored and witnessed. And in other things, you have to have written them down, much better than just telling somebody, though you can tell them too. But so many times we don't assign people to do that because there is that instinctive thing that if I do this, that means I'm going to die or whatever.
Right. Yes.
Now, I think anybody who doesn't have these in place has a humongous amount of company. The last time that I checked with the American Bar Association, 65% of the population die without a will. Okay, there's all sorts of things inside of the state to probate. We've heard that term before. And they take 5% of the value of the estate to do that. And it takes over 2 years to get it done.
Yes.
In the meantime, you're trying to deal with loss and getting furniture sold or whatever the case may be. So if you have a trust, all of that is sort of set up inside of it. They're not inexpensive to set up, but if you want to have control of what happens, then you do a trust, and that sets aside the probate. But most of the people end up going through probate.
Right. And speaking of trust, you had spoken before about working with women in groups. And
Yes.
I really found that to be so interesting and inspiring because you're going to want to work on something like this with people that you really trust because it's so intimate. But could you talk about that?
Oh, I would be glad to. When we wrote the book, we wrote it to be self-sufficient. You can download all the forms. They're writable, printable, savable. We just thought people would do this. Start at the beginning. The process was identified. A number of my friends were very good purchasers of the book. However, they hadn't finished with it. Well, I said to them, okay, let's start a coaching group. They all finished it. They were all so empowered that they had done this.
Yes.
They worked as a group. They shared the problems, the successes, and in the process, they held each other accountable. Now, I was the facilitator, set the course, made sure that, and you could, at that point, decide which thing was the most important to the group to do next.
Right.
So there's flexibility. It's not something you have to start at the beginning and finish up exactly. The idea, though, that we had 12 months that we met for 2 hours, we had lunch over that and so forth. And this group, wide range of age and professional background and some not professional background, the dynamic process that they created was absolutely wonderful. I was so proud of them. They were proud of themselves. And we had a celebration and a certificate was given to each of them.
Nice. I just
It
love
was
that idea.
fun.
And it's not something that it's not a common thing, and it's not something that I've ever heard that you could do anywhere else. And I mean, and until you, I had never even known that something like this existed. And I know we've gone through certain situations in our family where we've lost a loved one, or we've dealt with medical issues where just even my husband and myself, those lines of communication can become pretty fuzzy sometimes. And then I have four
Very
boys.
fuzzy.
So fuzzy communication happens often in our house. But just having these little simple tools that, I mean, really, I feel like these types of things should be taught in high school before you're out into the world trying to figure out how am I going to pay for college? Or, I mean, you know, to think something horrible could even happen to one of your children, which has happened to many folks.
Oh,
You're
yes.
not prepared for that either. And that's not something you want to plan for, because as you mentioned, you're thinking, I don't want to plan this because then it's going to happen. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. It's healthier. It helps you, you know, manage your stress, and
Oh, yes.
you're organizing your life. It's not a bad thing.
The forums are very important because that transfer the facts, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Half of the book is full of helpful hints and other information. For instance, you were mentioning about kids going to college.
Mm-hmm.
Most people do not realize, unless you have a HIPAA signed document, you have no ability to go in and have any medical decisions made about your 18-year-old kid.
Yes.
It's a real problem. And we also know that if you're keeping someone else's child, and let's say a grandparent and someone is going out of town for a vacation, you've got the kid, unless you have a temporary power of attorney for minor children, which is included in the book, you can be left. Parent can't be around to make the decision. The grandparents can't, or any child that you happen to have in your custody for a while.
Right.
So the book is full of all of that kind of thing, particularly in the helpful hints. Some of them we have designated as always. Some of them is to investigate, and suggestions about even check writing, things where you can be in trouble when you write checks, and things that you can't. So
very good.
Lots of helpful hints.
Yeah. And so if somebody would like to receive virtual coaching with you, how would they go about doing so?
Yes. I have a website, www.lifefactsbook, and that's plural for factsbook.com. And it's contact us there, and I would get an email to do that. Probably the easiest way, but I'm going to give you my phone number too. 614-208-6094. And I talk about that too. If somebody wanted to set up a group to work with, I do that kind of thing too. So would be glad to do it on your schedule and your time. I set up a family group to do that, and they had a lot of success. They got to know each other better. They also were able to share information back and forth when you were talking about like of the family health history.
I just wanted
to work in group.
Yes, I agree. We have just a little bit of time left. Could you share what has been the favorite part of this whole process and the continuing part of doing what you're doing right now?
I think my favorite part was seeing a team produce something that was important, and they knew it was important, and they did it for no monetary reward.
Right.
Huge to watch that group do something that was really good for other people without thinking what's in it for them. Now, did they all get a copy of the book? Oh, absolutely. And unlimited access to me.
Yeah,
but
that's inspiring.
I know my own attorney. There was a section when we had done a trust that was in the back of the book, and I found it there, had never filled it out. And I said, may I use this, Bob? And he said, absolutely. I'm just going to give the book to my my clients. So he contributed. He felt good about that. And that's all of this information. The content has been vetted by all these people. There's a list of every kind of legal document you can have. You can check it off. Do you have it? Don't you have it? If you have it, where is it? And you put it in a file. It's there for you. You're empowered to know, and empowered for the people who are your advocates to figure it out.
Right. Well, I would definitely say if you are newly single and you're really trying to figure out how to get everything organized and you're lost in space with your head in the clouds, not knowing where to look, reach out to Mary Greenlee. I am so certain that she could help guide you in the right direction. And the other thing is, if you're somebody that loves to take on new projects or be inspired, I would say pick up this book, because so many of us are at home right now. And I know myself personally, I have organized every inch of my house, but that is something that I've never done, is to go through and to organize in such a way as to what you're doing. And I really appreciate all of your time. And thank you so much for being here today.
Could I add one thing?
Sure.
Okay. I was talking to the president of a university here in Ohio and about the book and so forth. And he was thinking that this should be part of the curriculum because it has budget and all sorts of things. And he said, we are graduating kids who don't know how to live. This is like a primer for living.
Yes, I agree,
So
100%.
I was so excited about that. And so anybody, once they have a household, should have one of these books and get it started. You have your whole history. You'll know everywhere you've been and what's happened.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
for having
again.
me.
Thank you. And that is all that we have time for today, guys. Mary Greenlee, please check her out. Life Facts book. I am certain that you will not regret it. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. We will see you soon.